I used to walk through the world with my head low, feet heavy with memories I couldn't outrun. The streets I knew were filled with echoes of who I used to be. The laughter that wasn't joy. The smiles that hid storms. Every step I took, I carried pieces of yesterday like broken glass in my hands. I wanted to move forward, but I kept bleeding from the sharp edges of what I refused to let go. There was a time I thought I was free, but the truth is, I was only familiar with my chains. I called them comfort. I called them me. I wore the old life like a coat that no longer fit, but I was afraid to take it off, afraid of the chill that might come without it. I remember standing in front of a mirror once, staring at a face that looked like mine, but wasn't alive anymore. I could see the weight of regret in my eyes, the exhaustion of pretending that everything was fine. I smiled anyway, because that's what you do when you're too afraid to face the truth. It's strange, isn't it? How you can live 1,000 days and not feel a single one of them. How the noise of the world can drown out the quiet whisper in your soul that keeps saying, "This isn't who you are anymore." But I ignored that voice because change scared me more than a pain. And I told myself, I'll fix it tomorrow. But tomorrow never came, just another sunrise over the same shadows. There's something haunting about living in your own past. It's like trying to build a new house on the ruins of one that's still burning. You tell yourself it's fine, that the smoke will clear. But the truth is, the fire never stops until you finally walk away. And maybe that's where the breaking began. Not in one big moment, but in small choices that slowly drained my soul. I stayed where I didn't belong. I said yes when I wanted to say no. I chased things that never fed my spirit, and I forgot what peace even felt like. It's strange how you can lose yourself without realizing it's happening. Like erosion, slow, quiet, invisible. Until one day, you wake up, and there's nothing left but fragments of who you used to be. One night, I couldn't sleep. The world was quiet, but my mind wouldn't rest. I sat by the window and watched the moonlight spill across the floor like silver water. And in that silence, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Conviction. That gentle ache in the heart that whispers, "You're not meant to stay here." It wasn't anger, it wasn't fear. It was truth. And truth has a way of finding you when you least expect it. For the first time, I felt the weight of my old life for what it truly was. Not comfort, not identity, not safety, but a burden that kept me from breathing. And in that moment, I heard it. Not with my ears, but in the stillness of my spirit. Old things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new. The words weren't loud, but they cut through me like light through darkness. And I knew something had to die for something new to live. But I didn't know how to let go. I didn't know where to begin. So I did the only thing I could do. I whispered into the quiet, "God, if you're still there, please don't leave me like this." And for the first time, I didn't hear silence. I felt peace. Not the kind that fixes everything, but the kind that holds you when everything is still broken. It didn't make sense, but maybe that's where faith begins, in the places that don't make sense. And that night, something small began to shift in me. I didn't know it yet, but that was the moment I started to leave my old life behind. The journey of letting go. I thought that once I prayed, everything inside me would suddenly feel lighter, like heaven would breathe and the past would vanish. But the truth is, change rarely comes in a flash of light. It comes in slow dawns, in quiet choices, in small surrenders that no one else sees. The morning after that prayer, the world looked the same, but something inside me had shifted. The old life still called my name, sweetly, like an old song that once meant everything. I almost turned back. I told myself, maybe I can keep both, the comfort of the old and the promise of the new. But that's the lie that keeps so many of us stuck. You can't carry yesterday into tomorrow. You can't walk into new life with your hands still clutching what's dying. I started noticing the things that chained me. The habits I said were harmless, the places that drained me, the voices that praised me for staying the same. They all became louder when I tried to leave. The moment you start to move forward, the old life doesn't clap for you. It tempts you. It tells you you're losing yourself. But maybe that's the point. To lose the version of you that was never whole to begin with. There were days I wanted to return. Days I thought the struggle wasn't worth it. Because letting go feels like dying. And in a way, it is. You bury what was. You mourn the familiar. You stand in the silence between no, longer, and not yet. But in that silence, I began to hear the faint heartbeat of something new. One evening, I walked through a field I used to visit when life felt too heavy. The grass brushed against my legs, the wind whispered through the trees, and I realized I was no longer afraid of being alone. The stillness that once haunted me had become a friend. I closed my eyes and whispered again, God, teach me how to let go. And I felt him answer, not in thunder, not in words, but in peace that said, you don't have to understand, you just have to trust. So I began to release. Piece by piece, some losses came easy, others tore something from me, but with each release, I felt a little lighter, like dust shaking off wings that had forgotten how to fly. People didn't always understand. Some said I'd changed too much. Others said I'd lost my fire, but they didn't see what God was doing beneath the surface. They didn't see the pruning, how he was cutting away what no longer grew so something new could bloom. I remember a moment when I went back to one of my old haunts just to see if it still held me, but it didn't. What once felt like home now felt hollow, like walking through an abandoned house, the furniture still there, but the warmth gone. That's when I knew. I couldn't go back, even if I wanted to. The door to the old life had closed, not in punishment, but in mercy. Because sometimes God lets things fall apart, so you won't keep living in pieces. I began to see beauty in small things. Again, sunlight spilling through trees, laughter that wasn't forced, moments of peace that didn't demand anything in return. And somewhere along the way, I stopped longing for who I used to be, because I realized that version of me was never the end of the story. The new beginning? There came a morning when I woke up, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel the pull of yesterday. The air felt lighter. The silence felt kind. And I realized maybe this is what it means to be made new. It didn't happen all at once. No lightning, no voice from the sky. Just small mercies. A clear mind, a steady breath, a heart that didn't ache as loudly. It's strange how rebirth looks so ordinary, how the extraordinary hides in the quiet. We expect fireworks, but sometimes God rebuilds us in whispers and still mornings. I started walking again, not to escape, but to move with purpose. The path before me wasn't familiar, but it was filled with peace. The kind that doesn't shout, but hums like a song you've always known. Every step forward felt like a promise kept. Every sunrise felt like a reminder that even after the darkest night, light still knows where to find you. The world around me hadn't changed much, but I had, and that changed everything. I began to notice life again, the way people smiled, the way the wind carried laughter, the way hope found its way through cracks I thought were permanent. I used to be afraid of who I was becoming. Now, I was learning to be grateful for it, because the old me had to die, so this version could live. There was still pain sometimes, memories that tried to whisper, "Remember what you lost." But I would smile softly and whisper back, "Yes, but look what I've gained." For the first time, I saw my past not as a curse, but as a teacher. Every heartbreak had shaped me. Every mistake had carved something out of me to make space for grace. I walked to the edge of the river one day, the same river I used to sit beside when I was lost, the same place I cried, begging for change. But now I didn't come to plead, I came to thank. The water moved gently, reflecting a sky wide and endless, and I thought, this is what new life feels like. Not perfect, not without scars, but real, redeemed, alive. And as I stood there, I felt that same still whisper again, the one that spoke to me on the night everything began to shift. It said, "You are no longer who you were. The old has passed away, the new has come." And this time, I believed it, because I could see it, I could feel it, and I could finally rest in it. It was no longer about proving myself, no longer about pretending I was fine. It was about peace, the kind you find when you stop running and start trusting. I looked at my reflection in the river and didn't see the person I used to mourn. I saw someone rebuilt, someone forgiven, someone new. And I whispered, "Thank you, God, for not leaving me where I was." The hope that follows. It's strange to look back now. The roads I once walked in, shame, have become reminders of grace. The hands that once trembled in fear now carry peace. The heart that once broke so easily beats steady, not because the pain is gone, but because I've learned to trust the one who can bring beauty from ashes. I used to think leaving my old life behind meant losing everything that made me who I was. But now I see I didn't lose myself. I found the person I was always meant to be. Sometimes, people from my past still reach out. They ask where I've been, what happened to me, why I seem so different. And I smile. Because how do you explain resurrection to someone who hasn't tasted it yet? I tell them I just got tired of living half alive. I tell them I found something better than control. I found peace. I found purpose. I found God waiting for me in the very places I thought He'd abandoned. And though I still stumble, I no longer walk alone. The same grace that met me in my lowest valley now walks beside me on every hill I climb. I used to run from the pain of the past, but now I thank God for it. Because if it weren't for the breaking, I never would have learned to rebuild. If it weren't for the darkness, I never would have learned how bright His light really is. I still remember the old life sometimes, not with longing, but with reverence. It's a grave I no longer visit, a story that taught me what resurrection means. Now I live slower, I listen deeper, I love with an open hand, because I know what it feels like to lose, and I know the one who restores. And on quiet days, when the world feels heavy again, I return to that still place in my heart, where it all began, where I whispered, "God, please don't leave me like this." And He didn't. He stayed. He carried me. He transformed me. And now I carry that same whisper in my soul for anyone who feels stuck where I once was. If I could tell them one thing, it would be this. Don't be afraid to let go. Don't be afraid to leave the old life behind. Because what's waiting on the other side of surrender isn't emptiness, it's freedom. The kind of freedom that can't be taken because it doesn't come from the world. It comes from within, from Him. I don't have all the answers, but I know this. When you finally release the life you built on fear, you make room for the one built on faith, and it's worth it. Every tear, every loss, every step through the unknown. Because in the end, you realize you never really lost anything at all. You only shed what was never meant to stay. And what remains is peace. Real, steady, God-breathed peace. The kind that holds you even when life doesn't make sense. The kind that whispers, "This is what you were made for." And as I look back on the road behind me, I see it clearly now. The old me fading into the distance. The new me walking into the light. Not perfect, not complete, but whole, redeemed, alive, and I smile. Because what I once feared to lose was the very thing I needed to let go to truly begin again. Old things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new. And this time, it's not just a verse. It's my story. It's my truth. It's my freedom.